in this inaugural podcast episode, I'm talking to naturopath and owner of Australia's leading natural medicine clinic, Keonie Moore. Welcome to your own podcast,
Amazing.
Keonie.
Thanks, Tony. Great to be here.
It's so nice to have you on your own show. But seriously, I think it's so important for people either working for us, like practitioners, or people in the practitioner community who kind of look to you in particular as a mentor, but also patients, to kind of know where you come from and like what's your story and that type of thing. So let's, I guess, start by exploring who Keonie Moore is. Did you start out your career as a naturopath?
No, I didn't. I was actually in the Australian Army and I did a trade in electronics technician. So it was a
Wow.
big change to go from that into being a naturopath. But it really happened because of the early experiences that I had as a parent. So I didn't really have any exposure to natural medicine growing up. So I didn't even know what a naturopath was. When my second child was born, he just had illness after illness after illness. So he actually ended up back in hospital at 3 days of age with gastroenteritis, despite being breastfed. And then the following 6 months was just antibiotics after antibiotics after antibiotics. And I just got to a point where I'm like, this is not working. Like, what other solutions do you have? And that was the only answer that I was given. So just through sheer desperation, I started looking elsewhere to see what I could do. And that was when I saw a naturopath myself for the very first time and had such amazing results. It really changed the course of my life from that point.
And how did you kind of fit studying? Because I know, like me, you've got 4 children. So how did all of that work?
Well, I started off to study naturopathy only because I wanted to know more to manage my own children's health. I actually had no intentions of ever being in clinical practice. I
Okay.
read a book, and no matter how many books I read, I still didn't feel comfortable or that I knew enough to really manage my children's health, given that I'd sort of started walking down a different path that I'd never really even known had existed before. So I started studying and then just fell in love with it, and took 7 years to finish my degree because of said children.
Yep.
And I got really good at studying with lots of noise around me, that's for sure.
Yes. Late nights.
Early starts, late nights, and good at sort of blocking things out mentally.
Yes. Yep. And so it took you 7 years to finish, but then over the course of that time, did you decide that you did want to be a naturopath and you wanted that to be
Well,
your career?
I just fell in love. So the more I studied and the more that I knew, the more I wanted to do even more for the profession. So originally I thought I would go into academia and do a PhD. So that was my original plans when I'd studied. But then by the time I finished and doing student clinic, I just realized how much I loved clinical practice. So again, that experience changed the course, and I went straight into clinical practice out from my degree.
And was that by yourself, or did you go into a clinic with other
I
practitioners?
went straight into renting a room with other health modalities. So no other naturopaths, but I was working alongside some acupuncturists and a psychologist. And it was really interesting because I don't think I was fully prepared for those early days. I didn't realize how isolating it would be. Even though I was working in a clinic with other people, we were all on different schedules, there at different times, seeing patients. So we didn't really collaborate that much. It's it was quite an isolating experience. And I realized 2 main things about being in clinical practice. And one was how much time everything takes. So I became a practitioner because I loved the profession. I loved doing consults with clients. But when you're running a clinical practice, it's pretty much only half of what you're doing. So there's so much administration and extra tasks. And the other thing that I learned is how important it is to work together. I think as a profession, as a naturopath, we tend to work in isolation. So we tend to work maybe in other health clinics, but I know how much joy that I get from being part of ReMed myself, simply because because there's so much structure and support around our community.
And so was that one of the reasons why you started your own clinic, because you found that to be an isolating kind
It
of
definitely
experience?
influenced that direction, that I wanted a team, I wanted to work with other naturopaths. So ReMed, when I first started, was multimodality. So we did have massage and a range of different health services. But as time's gone on, I've been more and more focused on naturopaths and nutritionists because it is my love. It's always what I feel most passionate about. And it's been fascinating because you think, oh, it'd be good to have an array of services. But I've actually found that the clinic's gotten stronger and stronger the more we focus in on our core offering and our core service.
And I guess, where did you start? As in, what specialty did you start with? Either in your own first clinic or with ReMed?
It's probably not surprising to hear that I saw a lot of children with recurrent infections when I was in clinical practice. So recurrent tummy aches, repeated antibiotic use, a lot of molluscum contagiosum, eczema. So very general pediatric and very immune focus in those early years. And I've actually always been pediatric throughout my whole career, but I guess the complexity and the types of cases that I've been seeing have changed over that time. So certainly as time went on, I was more focused in on autoimmune conditions in children, and then PANS and PANDAS specifically later in my career.
And I guess as you've kind of progressed through your career and you've more naturopaths and nutritionists on board in that particular area, have you seen not just what you're particularly seeing, I guess, and you're interested in, but the type of child presentation, pediatric presentation coming in? Have you seen that
Yes,
change?
so certainly as I've grown in my knowledge and expertise in these areas, then certainly we're seeing more and more of that. So we have a whole kids team now that's dedicated to really helping parents navigate some really challenging and difficult, I guess, presentations. So a combination of PANS and PANDAS, on the spectrum, ADHD, a range of those conditions often overlap as well.
And you kind of mentioned at the beginning, that you yourself didn't even really know that natural medicine existed when you had troubles with your own children. But do you find that as well with parents or anyone actually coming to see us? Is it they're kind of like at the end of their tether? They've tried the medical system. They don't really know what's involved, but they just want
Absolutely.
answers.
So there's no doubt that public awareness of what a naturopath is and how they work has grown a lot in the last 30 years. And that's great because there's so much benefit to be had from looking at these types of services. But still, we would say that the majority of those complex cases presenting they're just through sheer determination and sheer, I guess, desperation looking for answers because they have gone down lots and lots of paths before they get to us with little or no results.
And apart from the pediatric side of things, can you kind of take me through how the clinic has grown, into other
Absolutely.
areas?
So the team has grown quite a lot, especially over the last few years, where once upon a time it was me and two other naturopaths at ReMed. There's now 40 of us. So, and as much as
Wow.
I'm pediatric in my area of expertise, that's certainly not the case for the entire team. So we have amazing practitioners that cover off a range of different areas from adrenal fatigue, hormonal imbalances, endometriosis, PCOS, along with even more complex presentations of unexplained fertility.
And then we've got the kind of oncology kind of side of things as
Yes.
well, haven't we?
So often our expertise is really driven by our own experiences. So both my younger brothers have had a cancer diagnosis, and I went through that with them as a sister, but it piqued my interest as a practitioner and how it can work alongside conventional treatments. And there's actually a huge amount of evidence and research for some complementary ways that we can really support quality of life, but even more importantly, reducing risk of recurrence after treatment. So that naturally led to me starting to work with patients that had an oncology diagnosis and also more pediatric cases as well.
Mm-hmm. And so what would you say would be the biggest kind of arm of the clinic? You know, where do we kind of see the most patients?
So fascinating question. So you would expect it to be pediatric, but it's not. Definitely in terms of women's health. So when you're looking at the impact of thyroid, fatigue, and particularly chronic and persistent fatigue, and then the interface with hormonal imbalances, that would be the core area for the team across the whole breadth of the team.
And that's that a lot of people kind of will say, I know that the ones that I've been talking to, they think that the way that they feel is normal, up to a point. That's a big thing, isn't it? That people think, oh, this is just who I am, and this is what I expect from my life. But there's so much that we can do as natural medicine practitioners to kind of improve their normal.
Absolutely, because what you'll find for a lot of chronic and functional health issues, that they start off quite subtle. So the onset is not necessarily very dramatic or strong symptoms, but gradually over time, people are getting worse and worse and worse. One of the common things that we hear are things like, oh, I just feel like I'm not, like there's something not quite right, but I can't put my finger on it. Or maybe they've even been to their doctor and sort of said, look, I'm feeling tired all the time, I'm not feeling well, all of the things that they might be experiencing that are more subjective and in the big scheme of things seem fairly mild from the medical point of view. But when their blood tests come back normal, they're just told, oh, that's it. This is just your normal. But so often what we see is they are the early signs. And one of the things that I would really encourage people to do is not to ignore them, that they are actually the signpost letting you know that you potentially are in the early stages of the function of your body not being optimal. And there's so much that we can do to reverse that.
And so what is, can you kind of take us through our approach, or natural medicine practitioners' approach to treating any condition? We have, everyone's an individual, not asking you for, treatments or things like that, but how is our approach different?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So we really take the time to really focus in on what is the underlying cause rather than throwing random supplements at people. So often I'll have patients come in, they'll have an initial appointment and not even get any treatment at the end of that, because this isn't about selecting random supplements. People can go to a health food store for that. The process is to really understand why that person is feeling the way that they are. Everything that we see is a signpost from the body, and it's giving us information about the potential areas that need support for your body to be able to reach optimal health. So we're not afraid to take the time that it requires to dig deeper and not leave no stone unturned, so that when we do apply treatment, we know that we're actually going to get great results.
And of course, when some people think of a naturopath, they think, potions and things like that. But we're very evidence-based, aren't we? Do a lot of testing and like targeted testing, and we really consider what we're kind of, we really consider the root cause by doing testing, and we're very evidence-based, aren't we?
So, and this is really important. So we work alongside and collaborate with our patients' doctors and their specialists, because this is about getting the best out of both worlds so that the client gets the best possible treatment. So looking at what evidence there is, what testing have they already had done through their GP. From a GP's perspective, it might be normal, but it may not be from ours. And that's because they're looking for different things. So with conventional medicine, we're looking for a disease, we're looking for a diagnosis. But from a naturopathic perspective, then we'll be looking at function. So is the iron status optimal? So sure, anemia is a long-term, late-stage consequence of an iron deficiency, but you can actually see that happening way before it results in reduced oxygen delivery to the body. That's what our team is particularly good at, is really taking all those cues that they can and uncovering what the main cause of the symptoms are.
So we're not here to kind of replace doctors or say that, there's no competition here. It's about we need both doctors and us as health professionals, don't we? Because we're kind of good at finding whether dysfunction is about to happen or on its way to happening, and doctors are fabulous at diagnosing
Absolutely.
a condition.
If I've got a broken arm, I'm going to my local emergency department.
Me too.
Some things where conventional medicine just does a wonderful job. So emergency care, testing, diagnostics, along with surgery. Like, there are some revolutions within conventional medicine. The area where naturopaths shine is really when we're looking at that subjective functional issues where the person just doesn't feel right and they can't easily find the answers, or alongside. So we are big advocates for working alongside conventional medicine, like I said, to get the best out of both worlds.
And I know that one of your kind of personal aims with the clinic is to get the benefits of natural medicine to more people, try and reach more people. I suppose, what have some natural, I guess even from COVID, that's been a positive thing in some ways, hasn't it? In terms of the fact that we can work online and we can reach people pretty much anywhere in the world. But if you can you identify any other things that have kind of any changes since you've started the clinic that have allowed you to do that?
Absolutely. Well, I think I've had the clinic for about 17 years, so there's a lot of changes.
A lot.
When I started, we didn't really have social media at all, so that really changed. Some things for the good and some things not so much. But certainly what we've seen with COVID is rapid adaptation of technology. So we probably would have always seen telehealth become more prominent, but with the COVID lockdowns, then it created an environment where we all got used to it super fast, much quicker than we would have left to our own devices. So certainly it's given, location freedom to both practitioners and clients. So we have practitioners now that are all over Australia, whereas prior to COVID, if you didn't live in Melbourne, you couldn't come and work as part of our team. So it's really allowed, access to that support, and we have a huge amount of mentoring that happens as part of our program. So now you don't have to relocate your family to Melbourne to be part of it. But also I think it's wonderful for patients as well. Certainly if you're looking for something where you want the right person, you want the right practitioner for your condition versus whoever's local to you. Prior to COVID, I had families fly from Perth to Melbourne with a child with very severe OCD to be able to get in and have care with me. We don't have those kinds of obstacles now, where it is much easier to use that telehealth platform to be able to access the person that's right for you.
And so what are some other aims, I guess, that you have for the clinic in the
Absolutely.
future?
Well, I believe so deeply in what we're doing. Like, I am so honoured to witness not only in my own clinical practice, but now the clinical practice of 40 other practitioners, how they change lives every day. And when you see the results, I'm involved in mentoring all of those practitioners, and when you see the results, it's quite outstanding how much change is happening on that grassroots level. So my goal is to expand that support for the profession so that naturopaths, being a naturopath or a nutritionist in clinical practice is a tough gig. We don't really graduate with good employment opportunities, and learning and living as a practitioner can be challenging. So I want to make that easier for practitioners, either directly through ReMed or through my mentoring arms, so that we can be here to help more patients. I guess when we look at chronic disease rates, they continue to be astronomical. Like in Australia, we have someone die of heart disease every 18 minutes, despite the fact that there is evidence that's well documented that up to 80% of cases are preventable. So we've got a lot of work to do, and I want to help practitioners be able to do that work so that we can change the health trajectory of not only our patients, but our communities as a whole.
And so how do we do that? That's a very big goal, isn't it? Like I think I'm a practitioner as well, and I do have this similar goal, like to try and help as many people as possible. So that's a lot to do with messaging and people understanding, word of mouth. What other ways do you think we can kind of spread the word about how much
Absolutely.
we can do?
Well, I think if we look at changing health trajectory, then that's my primary goal. And we can do that from both a patient perspective and from a practitioner perspective. So when we're, as a practitioner, really engaging patients in educating them beyond their symptom profile. The trouble is that we're all indoctrinated into a sickness model of health. We don't seek help for our health unless something is wrong. So then we're not actually taking those early sign cues to really create change that's going to impact our health trajectory. So heart disease is, a chronic health condition that I mentioned before, globally the number one cause of death in the world. And we have the signs and symptoms of that up to 20 years before it starts. So there is a huge window of opportunity for us to be taking more action at those subtle signs. Because this is a problem that if you only actually seek help for your health when you have a symptom and there's something wrong, but the symptoms are mild and subjective when they first start, that's the big gap that we need to fill, both from a patient point of view and a practitioner point of view. As practitioners, we have a really important role to educate, doing those screenings. So every single person that comes through our door or online these days will be assessed for these, these chronic health factors, and will be playing a really important role in educating them of what needs to be taken action on, not just why they come in terms of their whole
Yeah.
health as well.
And some things that they wouldn't even consider,
Exactly.
right?
I think I was just going to say from a patient's perspective, it's really then about prioritizing your health. So regardless of whether, maybe we're a busy mum that's been putting everyone else first, or maybe we've given up hope that there are any answers for us. So I think it's just really prioritizing health and trying to take action earlier and getting out the right help.
Yeah, absolutely. So when a patient comes to see a clinician, a ReMed clinician, what can they expect?
Absolutely. So certainly the first appointment will be, it's really important to get all of the, health history and a good understanding of what's been going on. So that might go through medical history, family history, all of that detailed information, but also what hasn't been working. How long has this been going on for? What is the impact on your life? So really looking at those motivational factors and really gleaning as much as we can from that information to provide a basis for more targeted testing. As you said, so this is from a targeted testing point of view, it's not that we do every test under the sun. It's actually really about going, okay, using our clinical reasoning skills to develop a list of the possibilities of what is causing these symptoms, and then going out and finding evidence for or against those theories. It's through that process that by the time we get to the next appointment for their treatment plan, we've been able to ascertain some really clear answers for each of our patients.
And then on the other side of things, we've got that, as you mentioned, the mentoring arm for practitioners. What can practitioners
Absolutely.
expect?
So we want every practitioner to be able to focus on why they're here, what they love, being a practitioner. As I mentioned, one of the big surprises to me when I started in clinical practice was how much other stuff we try and take as much as that off practitioners as we can. So if you can just be really focused on seeing your clients, writing their treatment plans, and attending mentoring, then that's always going to A, align with your passion, and B, mean that you're having the maximum impact on patients as well. So whether that's scheduling of appointments, invoicing, following up payments, doing the social media posts, there's those things that ReMed will do on behalf of its practitioners. But I think the key thing and why I love ReMed so much is how much the practitioners help each other. So we have 3 case sharing meetings a week. So practitioners can go to any one of those, at all of them if they want, or just the ones that actually suit them, so that they can bring their cases, they can ask any questions, they can go through treatment plans. We have a very active WhatsApp group which creates this community where at any time people can ask questions or get input from the Brains Trust. What I love even more is that we have very experienced practitioners jumping in and asking questions. And we have early career naturopaths and nutritionists that feel confident and comfortable enough to even put their inputs in. So looking at how we actually truly come together and help each other as a team is really remarkable.
Yeah, absolutely. What parting words do you have for our listeners today? Is there something I haven't asked you that you'd like to add?
For me, it's really about that health trajectory question. So as I mentioned, if you are taking actions, is your health in 5 years going to be better than it is today? So I would implore both practitioners and people alike to ask that question. So often with practitioners, preventative health is at the core of our beliefs and our philosophies, but in the practical application of consults, we as a profession can still get too focused on symptoms and prescriptions. So we want to really be using our platform to educate patients on how they can change their health trajectory. And for patients, it's really about looking at those early signs. If they're feeling like there's something subjective that they're like, oh, just don't feel as good as I used to, or I can see that if I look at the last 6 months, 12 months, 5 years, that I'm actually on a decline, that's the time to take action.
Absolutely. Well, thanks a lot, Keonie. We'll definitely have you back on to talk more specifically about patient cases and conditions and things like that. We've got a lot to learn from you.
My
So
pleasure.
thank you.